out in 2010 and everyone was like,
Okay.
being the first Final Fantasy game on the 7th console generation, there were a lot of expectations when it came out. And even though the game received mostly positive reviews, the Final Fantasy community was kinda torn about it since the game did a lot of things differently compared to other Final Fantasy titles. Now, while most people don't think Final Fantasy XIII is a bad game, it kinda paled in comparison to other Final Fantasy titles, since the game was kinda bare-boned when it came to content and just stuff to do. But when judged by itself, Final Fantasy XIII is gorgeous, with a unique combat system and complex story. And if you don't think so, why don't you come follow me on Twitter so you can fight me on this, you big nerd? But anyway, if you're new to this game, here are a few basic tips, tricks, and heads up for people who don't know about this game. So you play as these 6 losers, a group of people who were brought together by quote-unquote fate, and branded by a pulse fal'Cie and turned into l'Cie so they can carry out their focus. Or, in human talk, a big demigod-like thingy turned the losers into its little servants with magical powers so they could go do the task they were told to do, or kinda told not to do, because l'Cie's focuses are never really crystal clear. Now, the thing is, if they don't complete their focus in time, they turn into these goofy-looking things, and even if they complete their focus in time, they turn into crystal. So, being a l'Cie is kind of a lose-lose situation. And since they are pulse l'Cie, that automatically makes them enemies of Cocoon, which is where most of the losers live. And it's all up to you to see if you can escape the fate of being a l'Cie before things get all weird and end-of-the-world-ish. Along the way, you'll meet punching, screaming people, light shows, frickin' Sarah, emos, Australians, more punching, crystals, weird sexual noises, and crazy old flying men, to name a few. Now, Final Fantasy XIII has a lot of subplots going on, like some weird government controlling crap, mass murder, and it's kinda hard to keep track as to why you're doing the things you're doing. And while the story isn't exactly hard to follow near the end, parts can get kinda confusing because the characters are using words that they never really explain or just expect you to understand from the get-go. Like, what is the Purge, and I don't know what a fal'Cie is, and Pulse, what the frag are these things? But if you take the time to look stuff up, the story is really enjoyable and dives deep into how the characters feel about their whole situation. Because in all honesty, it's a really crappy situation. So get ready for some pretty dark and sad moments. Oh, this isn't sad, guys. I just like seeing Snow get punched. You big dope. So like I said, people have issues with this game, and the main problem is that it's very, 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 very linear, to the point where most of the game is really, really pretty looking hallways. So getting lost or not knowing where to go next is not gonna happen with this game. It's just straight. You go straight and you win. There isn't much extra stuff to do or explore either. It's just go forward and fight some more. Now, the combat system, aka the paradigm system, is where you're gonna be spending most of your time. How it works is you have 6 combat roles all together, and you customize your paradigm so you can switch the roles during combat to bring the pain. Now, the game explains the system pretty well, and it's pretty easy to get the hang of it, so I won't really go into it that much. But having good paradigm setup is so important. Oh my god, you guys. I mean, it's basically the whole game. Let's get real. Now, the key to fights is to stagger the enemy, because that's when they take the most damage. And you can do that by filling up this bar right here. The bar fills up quickest when you use magic and disabling attacks, but fair warning, it also drains the fastest if you use nothing but those. Always make sure you have at least one person using commando so it makes the bar drain slowly. I for reals always do this, because nothing hurts more than watching that stagger progress bar die.
What you say? That you.
So each character is gonna have 3 main roles to start with, and while they gradually gain the rest of the roles, it's best to stick with their main ones because it's kind of a bad idea to dump points into a low-level role that someone else in your party can do 10 times better anyway. Now, here's the thing. While eventually everyone will have access to the same roles, they are gonna have different abilities in that role. Like, Fang and Vanille can both use Saboteur, but Vanille can only use the Death ability. You see where I'm going with this, kids? While there really isn't any best paradigm setup, it's important to experiment and learn whose abilities best work for you. So play around with it and try different paradigms out, and you'll find out that yes, Snow is completely useless. Now, because Because the game is super linear, it's gonna limit what characters you can use at certain points. And while it opens up near the end, you're gonna have to go with what you got for a little while. But the game is gonna be switching characters on you a lot, and for some frickety-frack reason, it resets all of your paradigms even though you just played as these characters 10 minutes ago! And it's annoying. But each time it switches out a character, make sure you go into the menu and make your own paradigms again because the system cannot be trusted. And variety is key, children. You got 6 pretty little paradigm slots, so make sure you use them all because you never know. So this being a Final Fantasy game and all, you do get summons, and they can be pretty useful, especially in a tight spot. Now, the summons are unlocked as the story progresses, and you can only use the party's leader summon during the battle. But the game kinda does this weird Persona 4 thing, because in certain parts of the story, each character is gonna get really angsty, and they're gonna be attacked by their own summon that's kind of a reflection of themselves, and they have to beat it in order to gain the summon. Do you not see the parallels here? Am I the only one seeing this now? Alright. Anyway, the thing is you gotta fight the summon to get the summon. And you have to fill up this bar until the little you win button pops up. Now, how the bar is filled changes for each summon fight. And you should probably look up how to fill it up for each fight, cause pro tip here, it's not just wailing on an enemy with attacks till it dies, cause trust me, it does not work. You also have a limited amount of time to win, so yeah, get good, you nerd. So grinding is a big part of this game, but because it's linear, you're going to be going back and forth in a lot of areas to level up. Now the game has tons of points of no return, and the difficulty curve can get kinda crazy. So I highly recommend having save increments at different points of the game just in case things get funky. Now there is one point in the game where things open up, and it even has some little side missions to take on. And for the love of God, grind, and do as many side missions as possible in this area because Lord Almighty, there is a storm coming and it's got death written all over it. Alright, so here are some quick tips and things you should probably know before you get started. Use triangle to execute your attacks earlier, super helpful for healing. Saz has haste, Saz has haste, Saz has frickin' haste. Use Saz because he has haste. Upgrade your weapons and gear as much as possible and choose a weapon and stick with it. Use the Libra thingy on the hard enemies, you dink. The Sentinel rule is good for bosses since that thing can take damage like a champ. You can't be killed while you have a summon out, so take advantage of that. No real death penalty in this game, kids. It's just respawn right before the battle, so it's all good. Lightning is the bee's knees. Keep your main healing paradigm on the top or bottom for easy switching. Make sure you know who you are attacking and hit the weaker nerds first. You don't have to use the party member for them to get points to level up. CP points for everybody. Auto attack is smart, let it do its thing. You don't have to load all the commands yourself. So while Final Fantasy XIII is kinda considered a subpar Final Fantasy game, by itself it's a good JRPG with an interesting plot, diverse and complex characters, and an addictive combat system. And guys, let's get real. This game is gorgeous, and although it's a linear experience, linearity in games offer a sound structure for games that know what kind of story it wants to tell. Square Enix took a risk with this game, and while it didn't really pay off that much in the long run, it shows they are still willing to innovate and bring diversity into their titles. And that in itself should be admired. And I hope this Basics Beginner's Guide makes your gaming experience a little better. So please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Hey, how's it going? Did you like this video? Well, if you did, why don't you go watch another one, you nerd? Also, why don't you go follow me on Twitter and Twitch so you can keep up to date on what's gonna happen next? And a huge shout out to Twitter user Matt for creating the Final Fantasy XIII buns. If you have any tips for this game or any future games, please leave a comment, tweet me, or send me a message. Later, nerds!